Let's go.
So I'm Amy Rost. My studio is Arc Pilates. I have a home-based studio, and I'm just outside Calgary in a suburb called Cochrane.
Nice.
I'm
My
actually an
brother,
Ontario girl, though. I grew
are
up.
you?
I am. I grew up in southeastern Ontario,
Okay.
Brockville.
Brockville. There you
Yeah.
go. Nice. My
Yeah.
brother's in Edmonton. He's in the room right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So right out of the gate, I was looking at your site and you have three words, which are connection, community, and collaboration. And my kind of tagline words were move, collect, belong.
Ah.
And so I love yours. I think I like yours better.
Oh.
Could you can you just unpack those for me? Like connection, community, and collaboration. Why of all the trillion words out there you chose those three as your handle?
Well, those three are really the root of me. And connection, I feel like we live in a world that's lacking connection in so many ways. And connection for all.
Yes.
I have four kids. My oldest has got a rare degenerative neuromuscular disease with significant physical disability.
Nice.
Um, and that for us changed what connection meant. And
Mm,
2020, 2021 has changed what connection has meant again.
again. Yes.
And for me, I wanted my space to be a place where people could connect, where we may not know each other from anywhere else in our worlds, but this is where our lives intersect. And
Yes.
so that was really, really, really important to me. And I feel like we all thrive with connection. We don't have to
Mm,
do it alone. We
yes.
thrive with that connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Community, of course, we build on that. As we connect, we create community. We create community of, there's nothing that back in the day when we could have Big Mac classes, but it would bring me joy that when we were all in a room from all different backgrounds and we were just here in the name of movement.
Yes.
And you start to see then relationships start to form in the
Yes.
community, which,
Right.
so whatever happens here, also then they get to take back. I
Hmm.
also do a lot of kids work where part of my initiative is that yes, we do Pilates, but we also like talk about ways we can give back to the community because I
Yes.
think it's super super important. And then collaboration. I've only been teaching Pilates about 5 years. I worked in disability management in a spine clinic for 15 years before
Mm,
becoming a Pilates teacher. And the amount of collaboration that went on in that industry was
yes.
incredible. And I'm
Right.
like, why can't we have that? Like, why don't we have that?
Hmm.
And why can't we have that? Like, I'm not the teacher for everybody, and that's okay.
Hmm.
That's okay. But why can't I call the studio down the road and say, you know what, I've got a client that I think really would benefit from you as a teacher.
Yes.
And so for me, that was like, okay, I also don't want to keep traveling to the US. I want to be able to have that here in Canada. I'm
Right.
passionate about that happening here. So that's where those words come from. And I feel like they're interwoven in everything I do.
Yes.
And it really it impacts me as a teacher on such a deep level as well. I feel like I get just as much as what I give, maybe even more.
Maybe more. That's what
Yeah,
Kenneth was saying yesterday too. Like in this world that is so busy, and we think about our clients who come in and their mind is all over the place. And many times I'm like, "Are you here? Like, are you here? Okay, you're here. Okay, let's get started." He was saying that for him, that's his moment to find that centering too, because he has to focus on the
the person
person.
in front. Yeah,
So as much as it's for them to find that place of being present, it helps us to be present when we're serving someone else. So there's a
absolutely.
really powerful connection there. So it was refreshing to hear it 2 days in a row. Like, like it's like, yeah, it's true. But
Yeah.
it made me think too about you don't remember curves? Like the curves,
Hmm.
the things.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Right. So there's a company that was trying to build another curves type business model. And one of the things that they said that Curves does is they always put their centers in like a mall or somewhere so people could do the workout and then hang out in the parking lot afterwards and chat and catch up, because they knew that the workout wasn't important as much as the connection afterwards. So if they could have it where people can congregate after the class, they'll come back, if nothing else, for the congregation after the class.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a sense of them knowing that you needed to build community around your workout and not just have a good workout if people are going to stay connected.
Yeah. And then they kind of they build those connections, but it builds them up into wanting to work out. They're making friends. Like there's so many layers in that are so important. So important.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when you get them, you have that in there, and we can start to build it from the beginning, like that quote. We're building it with them in mind instead of saying, oh, by the way, you're welcome here. Those are two different things. Yeah.
And I think that can continually evolve too, right? I think, I don't think I know I'm not the same student I was a year ago. Just not. Right. There's been lots of changes in in the world, in my own life that have, not forced us, but have encouraged us to grow and explore and, look at maybe how could we do things different? Yes. How could we make sure we're having those conversations, those conversations, I believe, yes, within the industry, but I also, have found it really powerful having some of those conversations with clients.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Because they have different perspectives from their work experience. Like you're saying, coming from the healthcare, and you seeing the collaboration or seeing those perspectives are so crucial for us to just get a real broad view. Yeah. I was thinking also, like, with the connection piece, that I love those connections and just building those relationships with people. And sometimes I have to remind myself that every relationship is going to have a different dynamic and a different, for lack of a better word, expiry date.
Yes.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And isn't that true in all aspects of our life? And I would say in 2020, as a family, we've had struggles because my oldest lives in a long-term care facility, and we were locked out for 88 days from seeing my child, which I never imagined that would be something that was taken away. I'm also the primary caregiver. So things change, but we learned in 2020 when I'm like, okay, like I sent out a mass, just reach out, like, hey guys, like they're locking this down, like nobody can go in, nobody can go out. And we learned very quickly, for better or for worse, that, some people just can't go there. They can't go there, and that's okay. But that's maybe time where I had to release some of that. I'm like, I only have so much to go around. Yep. And I think it's so true. And it's so true even in clients, in business, in all of those things. And I think it's okay, right? They're there, okay. You learn the lesson, or you both get what you need, and then it opens space for something else.
Right. Yes. That's such a mature perspective, because I know that there's times when you see, for example, you leave a job and your best buddy at work, you never see them again after you leave. I thought we were tight, but no, it's just like, this was just the context of our relationship.
Yeah.
Or you leave a church or whatever it is. And there's some people who stay with you forever, and then there's other people that you never see again. And you just have to be grateful for the time that you had with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's cool. And I also think, I know from I still have quite a few friends who I went to high school with in the GTA area, but we don't see each other very often. We could go 5-10 years not see each other, but we can also pick up where we left off.
Yes.
We just look a little older.
Right. It's a sliding scale. Everyone looks the same.
Totally. Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm like, we totally rock it. We look exactly the same.
Right. So I didn't realize you've been in this for like 5 years. Like, man, like you are doing it. It looks like you've been doing this forever.
No, and I only found Pilates after 4 kids. My last 2 were a set of twins. Okay. No twins in our family. I found Pilates after I had the twins. My body was just done. run
Yeah.
down, I'm like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to walk normal again.
Okay.
My back was killing me.
Yeah.
And my husband kept saying to me, you should go try Pilates. And this was back in the day when you still had a newspaper and there was like ads in the newspaper, like,
Yes.
and I'm like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, no. And I'm like, well, I did a Pilates yoga class in university. I really liked it. And he's like, no, I think you need the equipment. I'm like, what do you mean there's equipment?
Mm.
And so there was an ad in our local paper, and I went to the local studio. And the first day I laid on that reform, I'm like, if this is how I can work out and this is how my body can feel, I'm in. I am
Right.
in. And I was like hooked.
So for the record, your husband was right.
Yes. Yes, he's often right.
Hey.
I don't
One
even
for
think he's on this
husband.
call. He's going to make sure we send him that clip, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
One for the guys. There you go.
One for the guys. That's right.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool though. And I love that you said that, 'cause I was bracing for the, I realized I wouldn't be able to get into my jeans again, or I wouldn't be able to, like, I was realized I might not be able to walk again. Like every pregnancy is so different, and some just ravage women's bodies. And like I see that here a lot, where you have not even every woman is different, every pregnancy is different.
Totally. Yes.
And yeah, to just navigate that is just is interesting journey for everybody.
Yeah. And for me, it was really just I wanted to feel good.
Yeah.
I didn't want to get out of bed every day like, oh my gosh, my body hurts. How am I going to keep up with all these kids?
Right. Yep. That's a good reason.
And that's Pilates lets me keep up with the kids.
Yeah, there you go. So, who is your ideal client then? Like, do you find that you gravitate to moms who are just like getting beat up right now, or do you find that like there's a certain population that you're most passionate about, or?
So I'm pretty passionate about, so I kind of have like three, but
Sure.
the one I think that gravitates to me the most is the rehabilitative, special populations. And I think that because, one, I have a child, it's very real. And
Yes.
I do work lots with MS clients and just special populations. And I think because of what I did before, I bring a different skill set to that kind of problem solving.
Yes.
And so I think that's definitely, one of my strengths, and who there's great joy in that. And I only take so many in that special population at a time, because I really want to be able to work with them and give them that energy. And then once they, like I'd like to say, I've had many start that are in that chronic pain category, that are really limited in life. And as we go through and work together, that they leave that category. They're not in that category. They graduate and they're, into that next category where it's a work in progress, but it's not, it's not pain based, or it's not such a rehab based, it's maintenance.
That's awesome. That must be so fulfilling. I mean, it all is, but that sounds really fulfilling.
It's so fulfilling, and you realize how important the work we do is for those people, that they really, we make a huge difference in people's lives, huge difference. And I don't take that lightly. And I'm often in awe. I learned so much from them. I always say that. I feel like I learn more from my clients than I can ever teach them.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. Well, you said problem solving, like when you're coming at it with a sense of curiosity and just trying to figure out what'll work, and Laura, I think, who works with Pilates and scoliosis, was on, and she was saying too that like because you have this knowledge base, you can push the envelope a little bit more than I could, because you understand what they can and can't do, so you can ask and explore and just take it to like a safer range, but further out, to be able to pull them in. It's fascinating for me to just see when people have like a real niche with certain populations like that.
Yeah. And I think, I'm a classically trained teacher. And like, we've got a really, good, set of rules and context to teach in.
Yes.
But for me, where I really grew from that was when I gave myself permission that it isn't going to look like that in every body. We can give them all the goodness and all the ingredients of that framework, but it doesn't have to look like that in every body. And that's what I love. And that's really what I appreciate about the Pilates method. And that's where I feel like we can learn so much from each other, because yes, I've got the classical context, but I love seeing, you know, like, oh my gosh, that's, I know who that would be really good for, where someone comes up with that creativity. And I think that's beautiful. And I think it's important that we keep learning. And, you know, again, some stuff I see, I'm like, yeah, that doesn't really resonate with me, but that's okay. It's not for me, but cool.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. I've said in the past, it's like, I'm informed by classical Pilates.
Yeah.
I was
I like
trained
that.
by,
I like that. I like
know?
that. Informed by.
Right? Because then we have our system, we understand what the system looks like, but we have to modify it and adjust it for the body in front of us. And we've said that in the past, but
and I think Joe did that. So
that's exactly it. I mean, so he's the last person who's allowed to modify something. Like, what do I do for the person in front of me right now?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's great. And I think we need to stay in that place. And I mean, you know, I think you worked with Benjamin before.
Oh, yeah, I've done lots of work with Benjamin. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. He's the first to say everything after Joseph was contemporary.
Yeah.
Everything after that, right? So I mean, if you think about it from that perspective, not to get in the big heated debate about classical versus contemporary, but like that's if you think about, like, contemporary, the person in front of us is our contemporary. We need to continue to look at, like, what's the best way to get them moving pain-free with ease of movement and all that warm, fuzzy, Pilates stuff.
And he was, you know what, he had said to me, and I was very lucky to take a workshop from him before I even started my training, and have done many with him. But he said something he said to me that has always really, really just resonated with me was, he's like, be the movement.
Yes.
If, like, my son is wheelchair bound. He has no feeling below the waist. He's got 13 levels of his spine fused just to keep him upright. Pilates doesn't look like what it looks like for me, but I'll just share this story because I think it's a pretty powerful story. It was doing my training. I had to do a research project. I said, I want to do it on him because of I want to see how the system can work for him more than anything. And I can remember, like, and not easy teaching your child, your teenage child at the time. It was not easy. And I can remember, like, okay, like, honestly, it took 5 sessions just to figure out how we were even going to be able to do leg circles because he had pain in his feet or he couldn't this and that. And then when we got to, like, the 17th session, we had to do 20. I'm, like, holding his foot's in a shoe in the leg circle, in the leg spring, and I'm doing the circle each way, and we take the leg out, and he lowers the leg, and he's almost crying. It's going to make me cry. I'm crying then because I can see for the first time his leg is straight. And he looks up from the mat and he says to me, Mom, I can feel the blood pumping to my feet. And I haven't felt that in years. Yeah. So I'm like, okay. That's where I teach from. That was success for that body. Incredible success. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so when Benjamin said to me, be the movement, I'm like, oh, of course. Why wouldn't I be the movement? Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean I have to be this big demo body. It means I'm holding his foot and helping him make a circle.
Yes.
All the goodness is happening, whether he does it independently or not.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
That's good. I'm just letting that settle. That's such a good story. Yeah.
Like it was, and then I'm calling for my husband. I'm like, come and look at his leg. Like it was like all of those principles, classical principles that we had been taught. I'm like, right there. His foot was pink. He could feel it pump. Like you could see the oxygen circulate. Like, I'm like, okay, mic drop. I'm done, I think.
Yeah.
Like big lesson.
Absolutely.
Big lesson. Yeah.
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 Nice.
And Pilates isn't often talked about in that special population.
Right.
So that's part of where I think that rehab piece comes in, because I'm pretty passionate about getting those people moving and keeping them moving.
And keeping them moving, right?
Yeah.
So how do we get that message out there that this is accessible to them?
So I think it's networking. You've got to talk to you got to dig into your network. You got to build your network around those healthcare professionals. And I'm like this teacher who's like, I have no shame apparently, because I will tell anybody and I will give everybody and anybody my elevator pitch.
Okay. That's what we
But
need to
I will
do.
tell them what I do and be like, if you have if you have patients that you think this could benefit to from, let me know. Let's talk. I do some work in the community that I do. I know that it's not always accessible financially for certain individuals. And
Right.
I do leave certain, I've got 2 hours a week that I donate my time to someone who's in need of it. And that can be a cancer patient. It can be just someone even down on their luck that's having,
Yeah.
whatever, and just to get them moving. And that, again, just educates the community. Here's another option.
Yes.
And they don't always know their options.
Right. Yeah.
So if you can, talk to your physios in your community, your massage therapist, osteopaths, those are great connections to inner referral and then they're like, okay, right, this patient can't go to a gym. It's not really safe, but
Right.
they can still do Pilates from their wheelchair. And if anyone
Yes.
wants to learn more about that, like, I can certainly talk about that. But we did a lot of Pilates from the wheelchair.
Yeah.
Had to get creative. I had to move my stuff out of the way, hook my springs up different, and away we go.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think we just have to show that it isn't like, it's not a Pilates body. We all have a body. That's your Pilates body. Doesn't have to look like anything.
Amen.
Yes.
That's true. Yeah.
So true.
And the more that like Kenneth was saying yesterday, like we also need to be able to accept the fact that we could be wrong in this process.
Totally.
We can mess up and we can be like, okay, let's just stop that and go over here and try. Like that happens too, right? Like,
but I think you have to give yourself permission to try. Know the framework about how to keep someone safe. But I can tell you lots of me like, okay, let's try this. I'm like, yeah, no, that is not it at all.
Right.
Not it. And also sometimes, what I have found is something that I thought would be like, oh, this should really, work, doesn't work. And then something that I thought was kind of like a little out of the box was like the one thing that like worked. I mean, my son has 13 levels fused, and I thought, okay, he still has to kind of extend, but he's kind of limited with all that hardware. How are we going to do that? Spine corrector, his best friend.
Really, eh?
I'm like, I would have never thought. But
Right.
I really try and have a dialogue. How does this feel? Like, what does that feel like in your body? Because I can only see, I can't feel what that feels like for somebody.
No. Right.
And when we can have that conversation, I think then, it also encourages you as a teacher to be like, okay, now what if I think outside the box? What other exercises could I do that kind of look like that feel really good?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's the beauty of like, in really the classical system, like that for one of the first questions you get asked is, where can I find this somewhere else in the work?
Right.
Right. So you're asking that same question in a different way with each movement.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's, we've got a ton of exercises that we can do. And then think about a million modifications you can create.
Right. Yeah.
Never a boring day.
I know. I think we have a mutual friend, and Leslie Logan.
I think we have a few mutual friends.
Yeah, I think so.
Mutual friends. Yes.
Maybe like 500 on your post yesterday.
Oh, that post blew up. I could not believe it.
Let's discuss.
Okay.
That was really cool.
What part do you want to discuss?
The fact that you said how many Canadian Pilates instructors there are, and I think everyone in the country was mentioned someone. Like, that was pretty cool.
Do you know how many Pilates instructors there are in Canada?
I'm curious. How would you even?
So I've got a little database.
Oh, do you?
I did a little research.
Okay.
There's about 3,000.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So there's about 3,000 teachers, and then broken down into that, about a third of them are STOT trained.
Okay.
And then another third, I would say, are what would be classified as contemporary.
Okay.
Outside of STOT. And then the last third, like half of those are classical teachers, and then the other half, I'm not really sure they call themselves Pilates teachers, but I wasn't really able clearly to define like what that was.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they could have taken some special interest course or didn't
Well,
have a
it could be
registered course
bar,
or
it could be,
yes.
yeah, like it could be
Right.
like hit
Mhm.
and fused, all of those things.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So those
Right.
kind of fit into that category. But I
Yes.
thought it was really interesting
Yeah.
to see. And there is a Pilates teacher in just about every province and territory.
Very
Not
cool.
everyone, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
It was more than I thought, to be honest.
Yeah, that's more than I thought. And when I was joking about everyone responding, like I'm like maybe like a tenth of them responded.
Yeah. But lots of them aren't easily found, to be honest.
Well, that's just it. Like I think, we're very social media centric, and we assume that if someone has a business, they have a media account of some sort. But there's a lot of people who are doing a lot of great work that just can't be bothered with this social media thing.
Yeah. Or even a website that it's like old school phone, which
right.
secretly I'm like, I actually remember those days.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So how'd you track down all these people?
You know what? I worked my network. I used Google as much as I could to kind of just locate. And I just wanted for me to have an idea of what is our community? What is this industry? Right? Because I think sometimes, because we're such a big country, sometimes it's hard to know what's going on in Charlottetown. If you're in Comox, right? Like we're a big country, or let alone up in Yellowknife and Whitehorse, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I thought, I just, for me, wanted to see what is our industry really made up of, and that was just a curiosity for me, and kind of been my vision. You and I touched a little bit. Part of it was also, where does the PMA fit in Canada?
In Canada.
So out of those 3,000 teachers, how many of those are PMA certified?
Mm-hmm.
Not very many.
Mm-mm.
Less than 80. Or maybe it might be like 84, might be what the number was the last I checked. 84.
Right. Wow.
So that's a conversation I've had with PMA. Like, okay, maybe like, what is our value to be certified?
Yes.
There wasn't a lot of response.
Right. Kind of like right now. Yeah.
But I feel like, and I had said to you, let's touch on this briefly, because I don't think it needs a lot of energy.
No.
But I do think, as a Canadian industry, what is our identity? Because it is
Great question.
I don't think we know that yet.
No.
And I think as we continue to move forward and move through tough times, in Alberta here, I'm not allowed to be open. We've been closed for 5 weeks, shut down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You can now go get a tattoo and get your ear pierced, but you can't come to a one-to-one Pilates session.
Which makes plenty of sense.
Right. I'm struggling with this one a little bit.
Yes.
But it has changed our industry. And where do we go from here to stay in the mix? Mm-hmm. How do we stay a part of the conversation? As teachers, we know the power that we have to influence health. How do we continue to be a part of those conversations in the decisions where wellness and health and wellness are being discussed, be it in a workplace or in benefits, and that, I think we have to we will find our way.
Absolutely.
We will find our way.
And as you're saying that, I think about that identity, that Canadian identity, but then at the same time, I also question, does it really have a border?
Right?
Right? Like 2020 showed us that the border is irrelevant because we're all virtual.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I guess the only part in where there is the rules and regulations are a little bit different, governed by Health Canada, than those rules and restrictions in other countries. But again, those are just, I think, opportunities to learn from one another on how is it done
Yes.
differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do think about that. And you were starting to do your Pilates Fest North?
Pilates Fest North. Yes.
Yes. And right. That would have been great.
2020.
Yes.
Well, there's more. So the dream was always just to create something where we could um, just have a place to go in Canada, where,
Yes.
because it is expensive to travel to the US and to attend PMA, it costs a lot of money, and that's not doable for everybody. A lot of time and a lot of money.
Right.
And yes, 2020 had us pause, but I believe 2021, the latter part, there'll be some more announcements coming that
Cool.
we will have an opportunity.
Yes.
We will have an opportunity to come together and have some of these conversations. And that, I guess, goes back to our mutual friend, Leslie Logan, who's part of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard to be able to think, okay, how am I going to meet all these teachers in all these provinces?
Right.
Because it'd be awesome to be able to, but
Right.
it's not. I mean, man, that'd be a fun road trip, eh?
What it's on my to-do list.
Oh, there you
Honestly.
go.
It
There
is
you, well,
totally
then
on
you
my
let me
to-do
know
list.
and I can send you the map of
Oh yeah, totally.
where you need to go.
I completely have a vision to do something with that. Like, I mean, these conversations,
Yeah.
one, just to have these
Yeah.
connections. Now, every person I talk with is a studio that if we were open, I would have visited by now for
Yeah.
sure. These have been live conversations. I met with Dennis in Montreal, East Base.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like right at the beginning of the lockdown. So we drove to Montreal and made that one of our days to go do a workout with him and just do like a live core conversation there in his studio in Montreal. Like that's the next chapter.
Love it. Love it.
Mm,
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me about that post. Was it the hockey stick or the tutu?
yes, I was going there.
Oh, you were going there.
Oh yes. Yes. So why a tutu? And Dennis is just like, I'm not rocking a tutu.
You know what? I'm not a dancer. I'm not a dancer. More than anything, like when I travel and do workshops or travel to events, I'm literally, most people don't even know my name. They just know me as the lady in turquoise, Arc Pilates. And so the tutu was kind of like, okay, we just need to have a little fun. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's all about fun. That tutu, the stories that tutu could tell. It's been to many places, and that picture, what you don't see in that picture from yesterday is it was about -5. I'm standing on my mat, but it's about the snow to step up onto my mat is waist deep.
Wow.
And like I was like wet and cold. I couldn't feel my hands or my feet anymore. And, you know, my husband just snapped it. And it's like, you know what? It doesn't get more Canadian than that right there in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, it's a trending picture right now. So that's awesome.
I know. It's like now I've got like, okay, doing tutus. To be honest, I never, wear the tutu in the studio.
Yeah. No, that's not your shtick. It's not your uniform.
It only comes out for, you know, again, it's like, it just adds a little fun.
Yes.
Just adds a little fun. That's all.
Yeah,
We need a little
awesome.
more joy in our day. And, you know, come on, how seriously can you take yourself when you're wearing this big, fluffy tulle tutu?
Right, yes. That's about as lax as it gets. That's cool.
Right? Gotta have a little fun. Gotta have a little fun.
We are at 49 minutes. That is crazy how fast this is going.
Oh.
And I wanted to talk about the actual term mompreneur.
Okay.
I had Tara Lynn on last week.
Yep.
And she, like, we had totally planned to talk about something else. We got, I wouldn't say stuck on it, but we spent so much time just talking about that work-life balance as a mom. And you've touched on that in so many different ways. But how would you define that actual term mompreneur and what that means for you?
Mompreneur means, to me, they're interwoven.
Mm-hmm.
And it is in my business, it is a family business. Like oftentimes, like my kids are in the studio, they're taking pictures for me. They're, you know, it is when we could have open houses, they were here with the community, in the community. So for me, it is, interwoven. We're always talking about around the kitchen table on Sunday dinners, what's next, or how do you feel? Or, they're hard to separate, to be honest. And you have to really intentionally separate. And I think that's the one thing that 2020 has showed me. I always, when I've taught some workshops virtually, and one of the questions I always ask is, what did you bring into 2020, like March 2020? What did you bring into it that you're not taking out of it? So when this pandemic is over, what are you leaving? Because I think it was a real forced stop.
Yes.
Whether we liked it or not. And for me, it was looking at, like I was teaching 4 evenings a week. I was often teaching Saturdays, and it was like, you know what, I don't want to do that anymore. I need better balance. And so mine, you have to give yourself, I think, some grace, some permission to not get it right in terms of balance, and that balance is always changing depending on the needs of the kids or your business. I try and work in 3-month chunks, and like, okay, this is what it's going to look like for 3 months, and I'm going to reevaluate in 3 months what worked, what didn't. And when I get what worked, what didn't, we go on to the next thing. So you'll never see my schedule booked out for a full year, and that's intentional. That's intentional. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That's so helpful. That's really good stuff. I don't know if Philip Griffin's still in the room, but he's a dad who has 4 kids that they've adopted and had to shut down his studio. And we had a similar conversation from a dad perspective of how you find that work-life balance and being a dadpreneur in that sense. And I love what you just said right there about it being both. Like, it's not that sense of like, I'm gonna be a worker now and put a pause on the mom life, and then be a mom right now, put a pause on the work life. They're interwoven, and not because your studio's in your house, but because this is like your family business in a sense, right?
Right. Like and I think it's also taught my kids a lot of lessons. It's funny because they'll say to me, Mom, I never wish you go back to that other job. Because I was gone, a lot, commuting to the city, like long work weeks, demanding job. And now, even though maybe this year hasn't looked like what maybe thought it would look like, they're like, you're way happier. Yes. And so I think that, when you have passion for it and the kids get to be a part of that and see that passion, they don't have to be separated. They just have to be, you have to check in with both sides. Is this what I'm doing working for everybody?
Yes. Yeah. Check in with both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that gives you way more freedom and way more permission to move forward. Whereas it's not like, I got to keep all the balls in the air.
Right.
It's
like, we have to keep all the balls in the air.
We all have to, and we have to take care of each other. So like, even this morning, I'm like, okay, guys, I gotta go. Like, my kids were still home, not on the bus yet. I'm like, you gotta get the dog. And I gotta go downstairs. You gotta be quiet.
Yes. Yeah.
So, we do for each other. And, I also think they learn a lot of things about business. My youngest, he's been taking some photography in school. So he's like, can I take some pictures, Mom? I'm like, sure. Yeah. Now I've got like a blossoming photographer, but they're part of it, right? Like they're invested in it as well. Yes. And they see what it takes to run a business. And I don't know that that'll be the choice for any of them, to be honest, and that's okay, but they've seen another side of things.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There's Scoop Flies right there. He said, my wife and my kids do love me being home more, well, my wife more than the kids.
Well, and that is a whole other thing, right? Is at least my kids now are back in school, but like we were all at home. We've never spent that much time together.
Such a treat.
All at home. Yes. And, for me, yes, there are challenging times where everyone's home, but I also think, I'd never get this time with my teenagers like this. Like, there may never be an opportunity again where we get, that time. And I don't know, there is a little silver lining in that. That's kind of cool.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to say what are they all going to say when they're 25.
Right.
Remember that year we were home with our parents all the time?
I know. We have this glorious memory and they're just like dreading it, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
My mom was there all the time.
It might look like that.
It might look like. They may all be, you know, they'll have a story. We'll all have a story to tell for the rest of our lives.
Exactly. Exactly. So good.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's 55 minutes. That's crazy.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
But thank you so much. I loved all the comments and the interaction. People are just loving all you had to say. I actually didn't even come up for air to read any of these comments. Yeah, so someone asked, are you interested in creating PMA type group in Canada?
So I am interested. I do believe from my previous background that it is important that we have some kind of association and governing body.
Yes.
I don't know what that looks like. I know it's not something that I personally want to take on.
Yes.
I'm happy to be a part of that. If somebody wants to take it on, I can give the feedback from the insurance side and from that background side of those who influence to make some of those decisions.
Yes.
And I think it should be, it needs to be based on upholding just a professional standard and not all the other stuff.
Yes.
Like, it doesn't matter how we're trained, how, like, that part for me gets, you know, you never say to a physician, oh, you went to the University of Toronto?
Yes.
I went to the University of Alberta. Like, that doesn't even come up. So I don't know why I don't think that needs to be, that's just my feeling, is I don't believe it needs to be a part of we have to have good training, but we also just have to have, I think we need an association that will, you know, stand up for us. And I don't know that I have necessarily felt that from the PMA.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a big job. It's not an easy job. It's a big job, but I think moving forward, that those are some of the questions we have to ask. Is that something we want here in Canada for us?
Right. Yeah. Well, let's keep that conversation going.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I think with PMA, if they're listening, is if you have teachers from different countries and representatives, that we should have a voice in that. It doesn't have to necessarily, it can be like a step back role, but I do think there needs to be a voice of how, with our laws and stuff, we have some differences, and how can they help with that? That's just my thought.
Right. Yeah. There's lots of opportunities.
Lots of opportunities. And again, collaborative opportunities that will create connection and community.
Yes. You tied that up with such a beautiful little bow. All right. Thank you so much. No, thanks so much for your time today. Like, I'm so glad we had this chat, and
me too.
We're definitely gonna do this again.
And I look forward to the day where we can meet in person with in real person hug.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Man, all that huggatry is gonna be like, look out, Pilates teachers.
I know it.
It's gonna be strong. Thank you so much. Such an honor. I'm very grateful for our time together, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks so much, Amy. I'll sign you off here.
Thank you. Okay, cheers.